Right then, let's get started with compound adjectives. So compound adjectives are pretty commonly used in English, and it's something that a lot of non-native speakers often make mistakes with. And because they have a peculiarity about them when we write them, they have a hyphen. And when we say them, they don't have a plural. So the rule with compound adjectives are that they are hyphenated, which means that they contain a dash between the words that form the adjective. When we say compound adjectives, compound adjective is an adjective formed of more than one word to describe a noun. So they take a hyphen between the words that are used to form the compound adjective, and they never take plurals because they're adjectives, which means that they don't take an S. And this is where lots of the mistakes are made. So let me give you an example about How to English. So How to English is a 350-page best-selling book. So what we've got here, the first compound adjective is 350 page. That means How to English contains 350 pages. But that's a long, wordy way to say it's a 350-page book. That's it. So compound adjectives allow us to express more with fewer words, which is why they're very common, and which is also a sign that if you're using these in your English, it's a sign that you're using more advanced English, because again, as I always say, a good rule of thumb to follow is that advanced English is the ability to express more with as few words as possible. So this is the easiest way and to say this, and the best way to say this with as few words as possible. So that's why compound adjectives are very useful, because they allow us to express more with less. So this is the rule. They're hyphenated. They've got this hyphen between them. That's not a problem when you speak, because when you speak, of course, you don't hear the hyphen. But it's important for the second rule, which is that compound adjectives don't take plurals. So if you say How to English is a 350 pages book, it's just incorrect. It's incorrect, and it will sound incorrect, and it sounds very strange. So this is the thing that causes most problems. And another thing, because they don't take plurals, a lot of compound adjectives are used with numbers. They're used with numbers. Now, if you're using numbers, then with the exception of one, they're going to be plural. So you do need to pay attention to this, because a lot of compound adjectives are using numbers. It's going to be the first practice exercise that we do is going to be looking at making or inventing compound adjectives with numbers, and they never take plural. And then we've got some of the common compound adjectives like best-selling. We'll look at the most common ones as well. First, we'll practice compound adjectives with numbers, and then we'll practice some of the common compound adjectives. But if you can Google search, for example, compound adjectives list, and you'll be able to find multiple lists with the most common compound adjectives. Things like best-selling. Best-selling plus noun is a very common compound adjective. So there are, a certain number, 150, 100 maybe, very common compound adjectives, which you do need to know. You can Google search these, and I'll also share with you some of the most common ones as well. So that's an example of what compound adjectives are. So How to English is a 350-page best-selling book. So the first thing we're going to be practicing is this kind of compound adjectives, which is compound adjectives with numbers. And these are very common because we can use them to describe and invent them to describe all kinds of commonly spoken about things. So compound adjectives, they're used most commonly with numbers. The cool thing about these, you can invent them depending on the thing that you're talking about. What do we use them to describe? We use them to describe, well, all kinds of things that contain numbers. For example, duration, age, height, stories meaning and the number of floors that are in a building. Typically, we call them stories when we're talking about the entire building and the number of individual floors that it has. Altogether, we call them stories. Weight, length, depth, dimensions in general, and anything which would contain a number. So these are the ones that we're going to be practicing in the beginning. So imagine I give you the following sentences. The TED Talk was 5 minutes long. The swimming pool is 25 meters long. I have two sons, one is 7 years old and the other is 9. The object has 3 dimensions. The Burj Khalifa is 828 meters tall, and the bag of sugar I bought weighs 2 kilograms. So I want you to think about how you can express the same thing, but using compound adjectives, using the numbers that I give you. So pause this video and try and think, how could you create a compound adjective and make a couple of changes in the sentence to express the same thing for each of these. So pause the video now and then we'll check in a moment. Okay, so hopefully you've thought of a way to use a compound adjective to describe each of these things. So let's have a look at the first one. So the TED Talk was 5 minutes long. So there's a way that we could say this, which is, imagine I use the verb watch. I watched a 5-minute TED Talk. All right, I watched a 5-minute TED Talk. Now, if you put also long here, you can also put long here, but because we're talking about a TED Talk, we know we're talking about length. So you only need to put this talking about the number that you want to specify. If we understand it in the context, you don't need to include it there. So this one, the most natural way would be to remove it because, well, TED Talks, YouTube videos and things like that, they have a particular length. So when you say a 5-minute TED Talk, we know that you're talking about length. All right. But if you're not too sure, then maybe you would need to specify using that. Next one, talk about the swimming pool. So we've got the swimming pool is 25 meters long. We can simply say it's a 25-meter swimming pool. Now, again, if you want to put long here, you can put long, but I would say it's probably not necessary because if you say a 25-meter pool, we understand that you're talking about the length of it because, well, it'd be very strange to have a 25-meter deep pool. But I don't know, if you go to a diving course, well, there are some diving swimming pools specifically for learning how to scuba dive that maybe have that depth. And in that case, maybe you need to specify deep. If you're talking about the depth of it is 25 meters, you'll say it's a 25-meter deep swimming pool. If not, if we're just talking about a normal, everyday, common swimming pool, we could just say 25-meter swimming pool. Okay, so the next one, my 2 kids. Let me get the sentence here. Okay, so I have 2 sons, one is 7 years old and the other is 9. So you can see that I've got 2 sentences here and it's a little bit too wordy. So the cleverest and easiest way to say this, to express the same thing, is by using compound adjectives, using the word, well, the number and then the year that we have. So I have a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old. So I don't even include the noun son here, because if I say I have a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old, we know we're talking about kids. All right. So we don't even use son in this one. It's just the easiest way to say this. I have a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old. This is a common answer to a question. If somebody asks you if you have any children, so they'll say, Adam, do you have any children? I say, yes, I have a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old. Or I could just say I have 2, but if I want to specify the ages, I would say it in this way. It's the easiest, shortest way to express this, to express the idea that I have 2 sons and I give their ages in one simple sentence. So the next one. I'm having problems copying and pasting here. All right, so the object has 3 dimensions. Maybe a little bit tricky, this one. So we'd need to change dimension to actually include the adjective of dimension. What's the adjective of dimension? It's dimensional. So in the sentence, we would say, I saw a 3-dimensional object. I saw a 3-dimensional object. So we would need to use the adjective form on this one. All right. Now maybe you're thinking, well, where are the other ones? So you see in this one, we've got an adjective here. The adjective here, 25 meter, as I said before, it's 25 meter long, but we don't need to say long. So it's almost hidden in there, but there is an adjective there. All right. The Burj Khalifa, is 828 meters tall. Let me slowly copy and paste the sentence. Copy. And so what do you, let's see if you got the same answer as me. The Burj Khalifa is a 828 meter tall building. So imagine I say, I went to the Burj Khalifa. And they say, what's the Burj Khalifa? And I say, it's an 828 meter tall building. All right. So again, if you remove tall here, well, depending who you're speaking to, maybe they would understand. Okay. But an 820 meter building, maybe that could be talking about the length of it. So if a person has no idea what the Burj Khalifa is, and you're going to specify that it's the tallest building in the world, well, you would include tall here to specify we're talking about height, not about length or width or something. And then the bag of sugar I bought weighs 2 kilograms. So an easier way to say this would be the following. I bought a 2 kilogram bag of sugar. I bought a 2 kilogram bag of sugar, and that's it. So hopefully you wrote the same sentences as me. If you didn't, that's not necessarily bad. It's just a test to see what your understanding of these is. As long as these make sense to you now, that's the most important thing. So you can see that they're very, very useful. There are very short ways to express the same thing. They're easier, but the thing you need to be careful of, if you're going to write these, include the hyphen. And if you're going to say these, which is more common, don't put an S on the end. All right? Adjectives are never plural in English, so don't include that S. Good. So let's go to the second part, which is looking at some common. Some common compound adjectives. Let me just get a list for you. All right, so here's a pretty long list, but we're just going to be looking at these. I'll give you an example sentence, and then what I would suggest you do is also pause at this part after you finish watching my explanation and create your own example sentences with these compound adjectives. So best-selling, we've got an example here. So How to English is a 350-page best-selling book. Mouth-watering. Mouth-watering is a very common compound adjective, which means the same as when something looks delicious or something is delicious. But typically we use it for when you're looking at some kind of food and it looks really, really appetizing and it looks delicious, we say it's mouth-watering. So I don't know, I saw a mouth-watering cake in the shop window. Long distance. So the marathon is a long distance race. Last minute. This is when something is done just before the deadline of something. So I bought a last minute flight to London. Record breaking. So record breaking is something that well, breaks a record, something which becomes a world record of some kind or a Guinness World Record. It's record breaking. So I don't know, the Eurovision singer got a record-breaking number of points in their performance. English speaking, this means that a place speaks English as the first language, as the dominant language. So the United States is an English-speaking country. Gluten-free doesn't have gluten in it. All compound adjectives that have hyphen free mean without. Okay, so gluten-free means without gluten. So I never eat gluten-free food. Highly respected means that the person is respected by lots of people, and particularly admired. So I don't know, she's a highly respected actress. Old-fashioned, I don't know, she was wearing an old-fashioned dress. Short-lived, this means that something doesn't last long. So fads are generally short-lived fashion trends. Densely populated means that lots of people live there. Tokyo is a very densely populated city. Good looking, everybody says that he's good looking. Brightly lit, that means that there's a lot of light, a lot of typically artificial light. So I thought well, hospitals are generally brightly lit. Hospitals are brightly lit. Open-minded, this means that you consider yourself or a person to have a very open mind, very open to new ideas, things like that. So he was considered a very open-minded thinker. Well-mannered, that means that you behave according to the appropriate social protocol in a particular area. So my sons are generally well-mannered. And well-behaved, this means that you behave in a good manner. So my sons are also generally well-behaved. Generally is the key word there. So well-known, who's a well-known philosopher. And then basically you can have well plus participle for lots and lots of different, to create your own compound adjectives. So you got well-mannered, well-behaved, well-known, lots and lots, not all of the past participles, but you will find a lot in the multiple lists of compound adjectives that you can find in Google, for example, that they have well included in those. And so just a quick note about the hyphen and how important the hyphen is. So again, this won't be expressed so much in spoken English, although the word stress and the intonation will change slightly if you want to express one idea or another, but it's very important when you're writing. So we've got a man eating crocodile and a man eating crocodile. So maybe you heard a slight difference in the way I say these. The first one, a man eating crocodile and a man eating crocodile. So you can hear that there's a little pause in the second one between man and eating. The first one, a man eating crocodile and a man eating crocodile. A man eating crocodile. So you hear there's a little bit of a pause there. What's the difference in meaning? Well, a man-eating crocodile is a crocodile that eats people. So maybe there's a crocodile on the loose in the Nile, for example, that has eaten a few people from villages next to the Nile. And they say the authorities are looking for a man-eating crocodile. This means that a crocodile has eaten people. But if we say a man-eating crocodile, this is a man eating crocodile meat, for example. So this is why the hyphen is so important, because if you don't include it when you're writing, you could well be expressing something completely different. So those, my friends, are compound adjectives. As we saw before, I tend to put these in two different categories. You've got the compound adjectives related to numbers, which I say are really common. And in those ones, what you need to be careful with is that it doesn't contain a plural. So just like we saw with 9-year-old son and so forth, don't include the plural in those. And then here we've got a list of very commonly used compound adjectives in English. So what I recommend you do, go back to the beginning of the video and create your own compound adjectives using numbers to describe various things. I don't know, you watched a 2-hour film last night, whatever, it doesn't matter. A 10-episode series, it doesn't matter, but go back and think of your own. I give you the different things that we use them for, like duration, age, height, stories, dimensions, and so forth, and just create your own example compound adjectives with the noun of your choice. And then practice these ones as well. And afterwards, go to Google and write in compound adjective list, and then you'll find the most commonly used ones. You will find these, and then you'll probably find other ones as well. Of course, we can't cover all of them in this video, but go and do that. All right, go and do that, and you'll see that they're pretty easy to use. Once you get the hang of it, they're really easy. And the most important thing is being careful with the plural. Okay, don't use a plural S when you're creating compound adjectives. And that's it. I'll see you in the next video.